Hello and welcome to our holiday edition of Virtual Vines. I'm Laurin Dorman, the sommelier here at Old York Cellars, and I'm joined tonight, as always, by our winemaker, Scott Gares. Welcome.
Thank you.
Tonight, you may hear some noises in the background. Tonight is a special edition of Virtual Vines. We actually are combining it with a chef event, sort of getting everybody ready for the holidays. We have an amazing chef here tonight, Jonas Gold from 55 Main in Flemington, and he's prepared an amazing menu for us to pair with the wines that we're featuring tonight. So for those of you who are joining us, we're going to be highlighting the 2013 Dry Riesling and our 2013 Malbec. We were just notified, I guess, yesterday, that the Malbec received an award in the American Wine Society Commercial Wine Competition. So some congratulations to Scott.
Thank you.
He's an award-winning winemaker many times over, so this is just one of many awards for Scott, so we're very proud. And it's the perfect addition to your Thanksgiving meal. So we're going to start out with the dry Riesling tonight. We decided to do a dry Riesling as opposed to a sweet Riesling because we think that it's a really versatile wine for your Thanksgiving dishes because it can pair really well with a lot of the dishes of Thanksgiving. So whether it's the turkey, the potatoes, glazed carrots, green.
It's a very clean and very crisp characteristic to it. So
Yep.
It's very clean finish.
It has a lot of appley characteristics too, which you have a tendency to sort of associate with the fall and the holidays, but yet it finishes nice and clean on the palate too. So anything that maybe has a little bit of cream, or if you're like me and you like a lot of butter and cream in your potatoes, or the traditional green bean casserole, which has a lot of fat and things in it. The Riesling is perfect with that because it helps sort of cut through a lot of the
that or even
dishes.
just the turkey itself.
And the
Whoever's
turkey
having
too.
turkey, it's very clean finish onto it. It goes very well with it.
Plus, I find if you're going out or you're going out to dinner or you're going to a family's house and there's a lot of different sort of wine tastes, I find the Riesling is really good for that because a lot of people will like it, whether they like sort of an oaky Chardonnay or maybe something a little sweeter. The Riesling always seems to work well in sort of joint wine taste settings.
It's sort of hits in that middle plateau of all the wines, all your white wines and stuff.
It's really one of the most versatile whites out there. So it's really a very good go-to white if you don't know exactly, you're not sure what to pair with something. A Riesling is always sort of a winning bet. So Scott, why don't you talk to us a little bit about how you made this amazing Riesling, this vintage?
The Riesling is, like we say, is very clean and very crisp. I put that more towards the awards to the yeast that I use. The yeast that I use for the Riesling is an R2 yeast. It comes out, it gives it that nice green apple, very crisp characteristic to it, and it finishes very well. Keeps the acidity in there. When the Riesling comes in, it's around 22, 23 bricks, so it ferments down to around about 12% alcohol. So it's nicely balanced. It's in the wheelhouse, what we call. And it comes out very clean, very crisp onto it. The pH is about 3.3, 3.34, so it has enough acidity in there for, we talk about the, something that's sweet, something that has, a lot of the cream sauces into it, and that's that acidity. That acidity is going to very much, break through any of that type of, food that you're having. Stuff. But the other thing that I do with it is nice, cool, long fermentation. It's about 50, 55 degrees on the fermentation. What it does is it makes it, instead of a fermentation going about 3 days, it makes it go about 2 weeks. So a nice long fermentation keeps all those, crisp characteristics in there. And it's just, because when you get a fermentation going, it'll look like boiling pot of water. And all that heat coming out of the top, that's all your flavors, that's all your characteristics. So you're looking to try and keep all that in, keep it all nice and cool.
Plus, a long, cool fermentation also sort of helps to keep all of those amazing aromas and flavors in the wine, too.
Yep.
And one of the things that's really great about Riesling, too, is it's one of the most versatile wines in terms, of what Scott does, because it really allows him to sort of do what he would like to with this wine. Because it has a lot of its own sort of inherent acidity, it does allow Scott to, make a sweeter style Riesling, which a lot of people are familiar with also, without it seemingly too sweet. So even if you've had our sweet Riesling, for instance, you know, a lot of people are surprised when they taste it. They say, oh, I really don't like sweet wines. And then they try our sweet Riesling, and because it finishes so clean, it doesn't come across as like a really sort of sticky sweet.
And that's where the acidity sort of plays in. If you have like an apple, for instance, an apple is very tart when you bite into an apple because the acidity in an apple is very high. Where a lot of your other eating grapes are a lot softer, it sort of doesn't have that acidity to it, so it doesn't have that bite. Where a Riesling grape will have that acidity to it, so when it is sweet, the acidity sort of plays off on the sweetness to the acidity, so it finishes clean on the palate.
Yes, unfortunately, those of you that did not buy tickets to come out to this amazing event tonight will not get to try our sweet Riesling with the dessert that Jonas has prepared for us tonight. They also had the pleasure of having his pumpkin soup. I think Scott had some
yes,
too.
I
He has
had
a little
some as
dribble
well.
still on his
Yeah.
chin, I think.
I hope so.
So yeah, if you are at home tonight and you do have the dry Riesling and the Malbec, and you can follow us and tweet us questions either on live stream, if you're on live stream, or you can tweet us questions on Twitter using @OldYorkCellars and the hashtag #VirtualVines. And we're going to try to get to any of the questions that you may have for Scott or myself tonight, as well as Jonas, who's here going to be preparing the food, because we have an amazing dish that he's prepared for us to go with the dry Riesling. It's the second course for all of our diners tonight. You guys are really lucky. It's a goat cheese and roasted squash terrine with a pumpkin seed pesto, field greens on a multi-grain crostini. And again, this is really nice. The Riesling will pair really well with the goat cheese, which has a tendency to be a little rich, and it will really sort of round out all of those elements of that dish. So if you're not familiar with Riesling, Riesling kind of has its home in Germany. And interestingly enough, they sort of rate their wines by the ripeness level. And Scott, I'm sure, has, you know, plenty of experience here with the vintage and the harvest. And you actually just finished everything up a couple weeks ago, right?
Yeah, everything is finished. Everything's in. I still have some reds that I have to press yet. So I'm looking next week. I'm going to press the Cabernet, which is still on skins. We'll get into skin fermentation and stuff once we get over to the Malbec. But as far as the Riesling, this year it was sort of, this summer wasn't a very hot summer. If anybody recalls, the summer was sort of on the cooler side. We only had a few days that was in the 90s. I think it was only like 6 days that was over to 90 degrees in the summer. So that sort of goes to the Riesling. Riesling sort of favors that sort of cool climate sort of style.
I mean, it has its home
to
in
it.
Germany, so
Yeah.
yeah, it's sort of used to a little bit cooler
Yeah.
summer.
So trying to get the sugars and stuff like that, we talk about the sugars when we do the fermentation. Brix is the measurement of sugar that's in the grapes. So you try and get everything over 21 Brix. Try and get it up to, the higher the Brix, the more sugar that's in the grapes. So therefore, the more alcohol that you're going to get out of it. So you're looking for a higher Brix content, but you also have to balance the Brix with the pH and the total acidity in order to come across on the wines. So with this summer being a little bit cooler, the Brix didn't get up really high, but the pH stayed lower. So you got a little bit more acidity, so it's going to have a little bit more crisp characteristic to it with this summer. Where if you have a very dry summer, you're going to have a lot more, you're going to have a little bit more of your floral aromas into it instead of the, you know, the green apple type of characteristics that we're looking for.
So it does have, actually Chris is going to be coming around and pouring all of the wines for you that are here with us tonight. But if you're tasting at home, if you've poured sort of the Riesling in your glass, it's best to kind of get a white sheet of paper and sort of hold it up so you can see all the color sort of characteristics of the wine. And this one has sort of a light goldish color, nice and clear and bright.
You know, that's what we always talk about when you go to a restaurant or something like that. If they have the white tablecloths, is always good because you can always put it down against the white tablecloth. Check out the color. See how it is. The other thing I always recommend for anybody that's home or anybody that's here tonight and stuff like that joining us is one of these, you know, flavor wheels. It's an aroma wheel. It gives you all the different characteristics. You can look all the way around it. When you go to a liquor store and you see people that, you know, on their wine labels, they have apricot, they have, you know, green apple, black cherry, all these different characteristics. This here will help you go in that direction. It sort of gives you an idea if you got a fruit characteristic to it, you know, what type of a tree, is it a cherry tree, apple tree, and whether or not you're looking into your reds or something like that, you're looking for something a little bit smoky, something that has like a medium toast to it, something that has a little bit more of a tobacco characteristic to it. This will help you narrow down those flavors, and you always wonder on the back of the wine labels how people
Where do they come up with all that lingo?
Yeah, where do they come up with those flavors? You know, black licorice, where do they come up with those flavors? It's on here, and it'll help you really pinpoint your type of flavors and what you're sort of coming up with. You know, other ones like the Vidal that we serve with the pumpkin soup and stuff like that is going to give it a very clean, very crisp characteristic to it. Have a little bit of that peach sort of apricot characteristics with it. Where this is going to have a little bit more of that apple.
Yeah, I'm definitely getting the apple sort of stone fruit aromas. Riesling definitely has its very sort of distinctive aromas. And I notice Scots Rieslings have a tendency to sort of change. A couple vintages ago, it was very sort of green apple.
Mm-hmm.
Then the 2012, I got more sort of red, delicious, more of like a mealy sort of, you know, that sort of
yeah.
When you bite into. Whereas this one's more like a Macintosh or Honeycrisp, like.
Which was in the soup earlier, which is very good. But if anybody notices tonight, it's going to have that very clean finish on the palate. It doesn't have that lingering flavor that sort of lasts. It's going to be very clean, very crisp. And it has a lot to do with the acidity that's in it.
This one has a nice mouthfeel to it as well.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely lighter in style, but I think has a little bit more mouthfeel than maybe some of the previous vintages. It's very nice.
Some of the other previous vintages that I had a little residual to them. Had about a 0.5% residual to them. So you're going to notice that a little bit on the palate. Where this one's going to be a lot drier than any of the ones that we did in the past. So you're going to notice that little bit more of the dryness right in the center of the palate.
Absolutely. But again, some of the dishes that we had talked about earlier with your holiday meal or just in general, Thai dishes, this would be great with. If you're starting out your holiday meal with just sort of a crudité, some cheeses and things like that, this would pair beautifully with that.
I'm sitting here watching the course come out.
I know, I'm watching
it's
some amazing food.
Out.
Again, Jonas Gold is here with us from 55 Main, and as soon as he gets done, he's going to come out here and talk a little bit about the food that he's pairing with this meal tonight. So we have a question coming in from Wine Compass. Thank you again for joining us. And he says, he's asking Scott.
Any thoughts on putting International Riesling Foundation taste profile on the label? I'd have to do more research on that. I haven't gotten that far into looking at those profiles. I mean, all the competitions that we do enter are all in the United States. We haven't sent out overseas yet to enter any of the competitions. It's a thing that we're looking to do. But I know like the San Francisco Chronicle, which, over 8,000 entries go into that one. We do very well with that one. Even the Dallas competition we do very well with, and the American Wine Society that we just got results on yesterday, we do very well with. So it's something that we'll look to in the future, but it's always that shipping thing that always gets you.
Oh, and Jonas, come on in, step in. So Jonas, why don't you talk to us a little bit about, and I guess this is your first time on camera for all of us at home doing the live broadcast or seeing you. This is Jonas. He's here from 55 Main in Flemington, an amazing restaurant in New Jersey. And he's here to talk a little bit about the second course.
Well, thank you. So for our second course, we have the goat cheese and roasted squash terrine. This we made with a little bit of acorn squash, a little bit of butternut squash. We roasted the vegetables, seasoned them up, let them cool down, and then in the traditional method of making something in the terrine, again, the terrine could refer to the vessel that it's actually made in, whether it's a hot item or a cold item. Traditionally, they're saying more a terrine refers to a colder item, whether it be a pate or a goat cheese and vegetable terrine. And if you get something, people are expecting something hot more if you're calling it a pate. But if you talk to older people, older chefs, everybody give you a little different version on what the difference between a pate and a terrine is. Again, tonight the version we're taking here is the cold version. Again, the goat cheese is playing off nice with the dry Riesling. We have a little pumpkin seed pesto, some field greens with a little bit of vinegar to take some of that creamy richness out of there with a little bite from the vinegar, and a little bit of crostini. So you could pick it up and almost eat it like a little bruschetta with the goat cheese and roasted vegetables on it, dip it into the pesto a little bit, or smear a little bit of that on the top, and then have the greens with the light balsamic to kind of cleanse you afterwards, and wash it all down with a little dry Riesling. I think it'll be a nice combination.
So Jonas, when they talk about a terrine, is that like a layered dish, or
It doesn't have to be layered. Again, going back to, depending on what generation I think of chefs you're talking to, you're going to get a different version of what the terrine's supposed to be. Basically, when they're talking about a terrine, they're talking, and when we get to the cassoulet, it'll be the same issue with that. They're talking about something that's made in a terrine mold and actually in that formed pan. Whether it's the olden days they would use a nice ceramic one, and some things could get baked or made cold. It's making it in there and then pressing it overnight.
Okay, so that's the pressing
pressing it down, and whether it's a hot or a cold, you're pressing it down, and it gives you that nice texture and that throughout the whole terrine. Pressing it all down, it said everything would kind of fall apart when you went to slice it. So pressing it down, whether it's the hot pate or the cold terrine, kind of makes everything stick together there, and then you get a nice, smooth, clean cut out of it.
I'm going to steal one when Katie goes by the next time, and then I can show it to everybody. Cool. Thank you so much,
You're
Jonas.
welcome. Enjoy.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.
So kind of like Jonas was talking about the vinegar, this is what the Riesling will do for the food as well. Like he was talking about the balsamic. And I'm an interactive eater, so Jonas was giving you all like the opportunity to pick up, dip, slather, swish around. I highly recommend doing all of those things when you eat.
However you can eat it,
Yes.
go ahead and eat it. Everybody.
So
it's pizza. Everybody has their different things of pizza. Some people use a knife and fork. Other people just fold or leave it flat. It's just however you want to eat it. Enjoy it.
So he was talking about how the vinegar helps to sort of cut through any of the heaviness of the dish. The wine can do the same things for you when you're having food. So you want a wine that has a nice acidity to it, because that will help sort of cut through any heaviness in the food.
That's sort of what I described when we were having the pumpkin soup earlier. I talked about the vidal, and the purpose of the vidal is to cleanse your palate so you can taste the next bite of food. You always want the wine to be more powerful than the food. If you have a very powerful food and you have a mediocre wine, the two are just going to mush together, and you're going to have a bland dinner experience because everything's going to taste the same. So the whole purpose is to have a wine that's going to be able to combat against what you're pairing with onto it. That way, then it cleanses your palate for the next bite, so you don't have everything look together.
So it's really hard to see, but I totally snagged one because I have every intention of eating it too. It's kind of hard to see on camera, but it's like a layered dish with like sort of the goat cheese in the middle. So it's almost kind of like a lasagna using the roasted squash and then the goat cheese in the middle.
Mm-hmm. I'm sure somebody will take a picture of it and post it up in a little while.
If only I could serve something like this at my holiday meal.
With all the kids running around and all the chaos?
Yeah, somehow I don't know if they'd appreciate the terrine.
No.
So if you haven't opened your Malbec, go ahead and open the Malbec for those of you watching at home. That will be the next wine that we're going to be trying. And again, we want to hear your questions, comments. How are you guys doing in the audience out there? Or is everybody enjoying the food?
Yeah. I hear a bunch of knives and forks going back and forth, and nobody is talking.
I'm totally jealous.
I am amazed because everybody seems to be enjoying themselves very well.
And very clean plates leave too.
Yes.
So if you have any questions, for those of us joining online, watching the broadcast or on Twitter, please make sure to tweet your questions using @OldJorkCellars and #VirtualVines, because we really want to hear what you guys are having your food with. We're lucky enough to be having this amazing food with Jonas from 55 Maine, but we want to know, what are you guys pairing it with tonight? What are you planning on? What are some of the foods that you've had with Riesling that you think are a great sort of pairing, partner surprising? I know I had the opportunity to go to Germany, and I actually had Riesling with wild boar stew.
Oh, nice.
And I
Nice.
never would have thought that Riesling would have been able to stand up to something like that, but it was an amazing pairing that I would have never in a million years ever thought stew with Riesling. You'd automatically think red, but
Yeah. You also think it's going to be a heavier meat as well.
Correct.
And stuff like that onto it. But that or whatever anybody is having next Thursday.
yeah, so any great pairings you've had, what your plans are for your Thanksgiving holiday, if you're planning on having any Riesling, or Malbec,
If you're picking it up and taking it to your in-laws, or if they're even worthy of bringing the Riesling.
Yes, if you like them enough to bring them the Riesling. So why don't we move on and we'll start talking a little bit about the Malbec for all of you joining us here tonight for the chef event. Don't rush. We'll just talk about the wines and then you guys will get to try the next amazing course. So we're going to talk a little bit about the 2013 Malbec. This is the wine, like we said, that we just won an award for, so we're really surprised and happy, and it's off to a great start, the Malbec. The competition sort of scene slows down a little bit around this time of the year and then picks up around the first of the year, so I'm sure there's more medals to be had for Scott. He's an amazing winemaker.
I think they sort of arrange it around that time because that's when they know a lot more wineries are going to have a lot more wines finished because everything's in tanks right now, everything's still fermenting. So everybody's sort of, when the awards sort of section picks up, that's sort of when everybody's getting their stuff bottled and looking to put it into, categories and get it entered so they can get some medals onto it and get some recognition.
So our 2013 Malbec is traditionally a Bordeaux grape. It's one of the 5 grapes used and approved to be used in Bordeaux blends. It made its way to Argentina, South America, where it's become really popular.
That's where everybody thinks it's.
That's where everybody thinks that Malbec originated, but it actually originated in France. And some winemakers and some wineries decided to purchase properties in Argentina because they wanted to make wines year-round. It's the opposite seasons, so they're able to sort of make wines all year round, and they took the varietals with them that they're most familiar with. So they took Cabernet Sauvignon, Merlot, Malbec, Petit Verdot, and they found that the Malbec just sort of flourished in the soils of Argentina and that it actually could stand up to its own single varietal wine. So that's why a lot of Malbec, just straight Malbec, started coming out of Argentina. It's become sort of the wine of Argentina too, and a lot of the foods there are based around that wine. And
it's a little bit softer.
It's a little bit softer, sort of Merlot-like in sort of its soft tannins and its fruity quality. It's very approachable. A lot of people that weren't really red wine drinkers got into drinking red by starting out with some Argentinian Malbecs. They're nice and fruit forward and easy drinking, and they kind of a no-brainer to pair food with. They really go well with a lot of different types of food, lots of red fruit characteristics. And our Malbec is always one of the most popular wines in the wine shop.
Yeah, it comes off very nice. It's got that light characteristic to it, not real heavy in the tannins. So again, like you said, it complements a lot of different meals, whether you're having it with lighter style things, you're doing it with meats and cheeses, it complements. It can go, or with a heavier style steak. It complements everything.
And we paired it with the sort of the Thanksgiving meal. A lot of people say, Pinot Noir and things like that with turkey, and that's great too. But we think that the Malbec is a really great choice for people who want to have a red wine with their turkey dinner. Again, there's so many flavors going on in the traditional Thanksgiving meal that the Malbec is a good choice because it's really versatile. Mm-hmm. And if you want to talk a little bit about our Malbec in particular.
The Malbec here, the 2013, was brought through a little bit on the quicker style because I know the 2012 was so popular. 2012, I know that won lots of awards on that one, but that one was very popular, so that sold out very quickly. So this one here came together. It came a little bit quicker. What I did with this one, we talk about fermentation on the skins. The juice in red grape is clear, so you get all your color, all your characteristics, all your tannins is from the skins. So you do a fermentation on the skins. So we do when the grapes come in, this one came in and it was around about 24 bricks when it come in. The pH is a little bit higher on this than the Riesling, so it's going to be a little bit softer, and that's what gives it the softer characteristics. So the total acidity is a little bit lower, the pH is a little bit higher onto it, so it gives it a little bit softer characteristic to it, a little bit more of a rounded palate character to it. So when the grapes come in, we crush them, we put them into a tank, and we start the fermentation on the skins. So when the skins are in there, they start to float. So I do a pump over and a punch down. I take the juice from the bottom, and I pump it over top of the skins that come up out of the juice. And I punch all those back down into the juice to get all the characteristics to them, so they get all the fermentation going. And I also, what I did with this one here, I also added the malolactic culture at the same time too. Where in years past, what I did is I added the malolactic culture after the fermentation, which is another secondary fermentation that we put it through, which is a malic acid fermentation. So you have your initial sugar fermentation, and then you go into that one. So now what I do is I combine them all at the same time. So because the malolactic fermentation needs a higher temperature to go through, it needs about 70, 75 degrees. So what I do is when the initial fermentation is going through, it's about 70 to 80 degrees. It ranges in that form there. That way then it gets the malic fermentation going at the same time. So once everything finishes, this one was about 14 days on a skin. So every day, twice a day, in the morning and at night, I do a punch over and a punch down. So what I do is I bring the juice up, do it twice a day, and I do that for 14 days. After the 14th day, I check the color, how it is, which
Yeah,
I
I'll
haven't gotten
pour.
any
I'll
there
pour.
yet.
Yeah, yeah.
So we get the color into it, we check the color onto it. After every day, I'll take a sample, I put it into a glass, and I keep on checking it every day. Every day I put a glass aside, check it, see what kind of pigment is in there. Because with the pump overs, what it does is adds oxygen to it during fermentation. What it does is it helps bind the color, so the color doesn't fall out onto you. So what it does is it binds the color. Once it gets to that stage, we then press it, and then we put it into another tank, and we start the racking. So this one here was a little bit quicker, higher temperatures. I don't have to put it on the skins nearly as long, so it gets a quicker fermentation onto it. Where like the Riesling was about 2 weeks, this one was about 2 weeks. The 2012 cab that we have, that
Yep.
was 31 days. So just
Yeah.
a big difference between when you have a cooler fermentation, because that was about 55 degrees fermentation, it was 60 degrees. So that was a lot cooler fermentation. It took a lot longer to get the color structure out of it.
And
This one
Malbec
here
has
is-
like a thicker skin too,
Malbec-
right? So
Malbec is also a bigger berry too.
right, so it's going to pull
so
a lot
it's
more
gonna-
color and
yeah.
tannin out.
Yep. So where the Cabernet is a lot smaller berry and a lot tighter cluster, this is a little bit longer, a little bit more elongated cluster onto it. So you're looking at the color structure. Once we've pressed it, we get the filtering, we start racking, cold stabilization, and we start from there. So we do the whole process with the cold stabilizing, get all the colors, the tartrates out of it, so that's nice and clean, good crisp.
And for those of you at home that have this Malbec and are participating with us, I mean, it has sort of that traditional Malbec bright, I mean, ruby color. It's very, very vibrant. And we have a question from Mirand Garisio wants to know what to pair tofurkey with. Well, interestingly enough, I know that tofurkey is sort of a vegetarian alternative to the turkey. The last time I saw one, it looked a little bit like a ball of something. Wasn't exactly sure. I know it has a lot of spices in it. I guess that's to try to make it seem more turkey-like. So it is heavily spiced. So for me, if I was going to go the tofurkey route, I probably would go maybe with a Riesling or with a white. But I guess you could do like a lighter style red too.
The Vidal that we had
Probably
first.
the Vidal, yeah, the one that we had the first. Maybe a white with like a little bit more body to
course,
it.
I think the Vidal would have a little bit more structure to it than the Riesling, so it would have a little bit more. It would stand up to all the stuff that's in there.
I actually went to an event that had a turkey, a turducken, and a tofurkey.
No,
Had like a little of everything.
nice.
Yeah, so that was my first. And then we have a few vegetarians at the winery that like to break out the tofurkey every year too. So I don't know, Narendra, what do you think? Tofurkey? Narendra is helping us with all of the PA stuff tonight. So what do you think, Narendra? Tofurkey?
Yeah, I think tofurkey paired with Malbec.
Malbec,
Oh,
okay.
you would go with the Malbec with it, huh? Oh.
Not too heavy.
Am I right? It's like kind of spicy, like it's heavily spiced, and from what I remember.
Yeah, Narendra is saying that it is spicy. You know?
So he says Malbec, and I'm going to go with him. He's probably had a lot
Yeah.
more Tofurky than I have.
Yeah, I'm sure. I would have went with the Vidal.
Yeah. So, interestingly enough, Jonas paired the Malbec that we're having tonight. I thought this was kind of cool to bring up. We actually are having a duck cassoulet. It's going to be with house-made sausages, white beans, fresh herbs, and tomato. And interestingly, the sausage, white bean, and tomato is like a very traditional, like Tuscan style dish. You'll see it a lot. It's considered like sort of a rustic Tuscan dish. And it's paired with sort of your average Chianti. So I think that this is kind of a nice sort of pairing as well for that reason. And then he's also pairing it because we have some vegetarians in our group tonight. So he's actually pairing it also with a wild mushroom ravioli.
Oh,
so I think
nice.
that like just shows sort of the versatility of the Malbec.
Yeah, with the
that
wild,
you compare
with
it
the wild mushroom, the Malbec would go
Yeah.
very well with that.
So we have another question. Kathy Constantine is asking, where do some wines have strong? Why do some wines? I have my glasses on too. This is terrible. Why do some wines have stronger noses than others, and does it have to do with time?
It is with the time. Like I talked about with this one here, this was about 14 days on the skins during fermentation. But I also brought the temperatures up in this. So the temperatures are a little bit hotter, so you're going to get a little bit more, and I always talk about going back to one of these wheels. Because with this wine here, I pull up a little bit, you can go into here and you have a little bit of the cedar characteristic to it, a little bit of the vanilla, a little bit of cedar characteristics to it, and that's what I'm pulling up on the Malbec here. So you're going to have that, that clean characteristic to it,
Absolutely.
but you're also going to have the cedar nose to it, the cedar palate onto it. So it all depends on also the oak, where, American oak is used on this.
And that's going to
where-
have it impart its own flavors.
That's going to impart its flavors, where like a French oak is going to have a little bit more of a vanilla characteristic to
Right.
it. So
American
you're
oak
gonna
has a
pull-
little bit more spice.
Yep, a little bit more spicy. The American oak is seems a little bit more drier. So you
Yeah.
almost get a little bit more of a drier palate, in the center of the palate. Where the French oak is going to be a little bit more in the back of the palate, a little bit more vanilla, coat the palate a little bit better.
So I would think in terms of something being stronger, it's going to be a combination of things, right? So it's going to be a combination of the grape type. It's going to be a combination of how the wine itself was made.
And also the yeast.
And the yeast.
The yeast
Scott
I
talks a
use-
lot about
yeah.
the yeast in our broadcast because I think it's a really important thing to note that he selects certain yeasts to go with certain grape varietals because they impart flavors and aromas that Scott wants in the wine as well. A lot of people just think, oh, the yeast just kind of, you stick it in there and it ferments and voila. Well, there's a lot more that goes into
your
it.
older style, people and stuff like that. The old, people that come in, they let it go through a wild yeast fermentation, and wild yeast fermentation is not going to give you no flavors, not going to give you no characteristics. All it's going to do is just give you alcohol. So you're really looking for a yeast that's going to give you flavors, backbone, and stuff like that to it. A whole combination of everything together. So with this one here, I use a yeast called a D254 that I use. And it's sort of like this time of the year, actually back in June and July when I'm ordering the yeast for the harvest, it's like Christmas. So you go through a
He's got like a
catalog.
huge book
Yeah,
and he
and
like
you
starts thumbing through.
And you start looking through it, all hundreds of different types of yeast. So every yeast will give you, more floral characteristics, more, butter.
And I would imagine
characteristics
suited
it.
to different fermentation
Yeah,
temperatures too. So
different yeasts, you really got to read up onto them, because if anybody's doing any home winemaking at home, you really got to read up on the yeast, because the different yeasts, some yeast strains only want 70 degrees, other yeast strains like it at 62 degrees. So it really plays which yeast strand you use, which one you want to work with, and make sure you're keeping the temperatures. And with our tanks, if anybody's been here, I know everybody that's in our audience has been here, they drive right down past our tank room. You can look right into the tanks, and you see they're all jacketed. They're all jacketed, so I can run a glycol chiller around them to regulate these temperatures. So if a wine yeast is calling for 62 degrees, I can make it 62 degrees and keep it at that temperature for the whole time the fermentation is going. If something likes it a little bit warmer, I change the thermostat and I make that tank, at 72. It all depends on what the yeast that you're using, which characteristics you're going to look for.
Scott is a winemaker, which also translates to wine babysitter.
Yes. Yeah,
He comes over when he's starting the process, and he'll be over here a couple times at night, checking on everybody, making sure everybody's happy and that they like their temperature and that they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. And
I show up here more than you think.
I'm sure you do, because it's a very delicate process of keeping everything where it needs to be in order for the wines to...
I showed up last week when John was giving a tour, and I walked in, did a pump over, and walked back out, and he's like, and there goes the winemaker. I'm like, take it
He's
easy.
here checking
Yep.
on his children.
Yep, just doing the pump over on the Cabernet, because like I said, even on the weekends,
They're still doing their thing.
it's 7 days a week. I'm here twice a day.
We have another question from Wine Compass. What chocolates pair well with both wines?
Now, you're gonna want the darker chocolate.
Yeah, the Malbec, interestingly enough, I would definitely do a darker chocolate with the Malbec, but I wouldn't go like super dark because they tend to get a little bit bitter.
Yeah.
And your Malbec in particular is really nice and fruity, so I would probably go maybe like in the 50 to 60% cocoa
I was thinking
range.
about maybe 62 would be the most.
Yeah, and then the dry Riesling probably would do well with maybe like, we have like a 38% that we have in our tasting room, which is, it's a milk chocolate, but it's not quite as sweet milky as some milk chocolates, so I'd probably go in the range with that.
Yeah, it's not a real creamy
No,
chocolate.
no. I think it still is definitely a little bit higher in the cocoa range, so that would be my suggestion, like a milk chocolate maybe with the Riesling, but not, like Scott's saying, like not a real creamy sweet milk, but something that still has a little bit of dark chocolate characteristics. But definitely not a super, super dark for the Malbec either. So why don't we talk a little bit about the Malbec, sort of what we're seeing in the glass and what we're smelling. Like I was saying earlier, this Malbec has, very, very rich garnet. I do get a little sort of legs on the glass.
Mm-hmm.
And the legs actually do have, if you hold it up to a white piece of paper, the legs actually do have some color in them.
Now the pH on this one's going to be a little bit higher. It's going to be like a 3.5, 3.56. So the pH is going to be a little bit higher on it. So it's going to have that softer character to it, not as acidic as the Riesling. And this one also came out, it was about 13.8% in alcohol. So it's not real heavy in the alcohol where you're going to get that, some people almost get that heartburn characteristic to it. Where this one here is balanced very nicely with the pH and the alcohol, so you're not going to get that burn. It's going to seem very smooth.
On the nose, you had mentioned sort of that cedar, but I definitely get that a little tobacco-y, not super heavy on the tobacco. Definitely get some of that ripe red fruit characteristic too.
A little bit of clove on the finish.
A little bit. Haven't gotten to the flavor yet, but. And again, it definitely has a nice tannin on the finish, but a little bit softer. Mm-hmm. This is actually a pretty robust Malbec. Definitely the berry carries through. I agree with you, a little bit of the clove, a little bit of the spiciness on the finish.
Yeah, that's what I said. This always helps. Try and narrow down those flavors, those sort of flavor profiles. This is the one thing that will really help you get those, profiles right down to the actual, whether it's licorice or, they even have like on here mint, walnuts, the hazelnut and stuff like that.
Yeah, the nuts. That's a really good call. So this Malbec would probably, Wine Compass was asking us about chocolate. Maybe sort of a dark chocolate with some almonds in it would be great. Just to sort of play on the nuttiness.
That was sort of when we had Lori here.
Yeah, that's right.
Lori would have been when
she would have been able to rattle off about.
She would have been able to know exactly what chocolate to have with it. And
so,
she had that one that was the orange.
So we had talked about what Jonas was pairing the Malbec with tonight, but some cheeses, some of your harder cheeses, Parmesan Manchego would be great. The traditional chimichurri sauce from Argentina, so like a nice steak with some chimichurri sauce. Prime rib, roasted grilled meats, game meats, lamb sausages, which is part of the dish that we're going to have. Also barbecue.
Yeah, that would be very nice.
because you do have a lot of the fruitiness, and it's not heavy in alcohol, so I think it would pair nicely
Yeah.
with.
Something, even if you're doing a smoking and stuff like that, you're doing some smoked ribs and stuff, would pair very well with smoked ribs.
Yeah, so again, oh, and I have on here too, chocolate gelato. That would be great with Malbec.
That's good with anything.
Yeah. So again, how are you guys doing? How'd you guys enjoy the second course?
Very good. Nice.
So you all going to be serving that at your Thanksgiving holiday? You're going to like impress all of your friends and family and whip out a tureen? Yeah, there you go.
If the chef comes to your house and makes it.
Yeah, we like it if the chef would come to my house. So if you're watching online, make sure you tweet us some questions. New Jersey Wine With Me has another question for Scott. What are you working
NJ,
on now, Scott?
Right now, what I'm working on is my new Stagecoach red that I'm working on, and that's a blend of 4 different wines. It's 2 French-American hybrids, and one's in the Cab and a Merlot that's in it. It's a Fauche.
Marshall Fauche, which probably a lot of people aren't familiar with, and Landau Noir.
Yep, Landau Noir, Marshall Fauche, Cabernet, and Merlot is in it. So it's
2
a
of the
combination
unique
of 4.
varieties that we grow here at the winery.
Yep. So I'm working on that right now, getting that ready for the tasting room, and also hopefully on Monday I'll be pressing the Cabernet, which will be 22 days on the skins.
And for all of our Case Club members that are here tonight, he's been working on the sparkling, the new Blanc de Blanc.
Yes, I am.
So if you're not a Case Club member, I highly recommend you become one because this Blanc de Blanc is spectacular.
Yes. So that'll be out. That'll be December 5th for
December
our Case Club.
5th for our Case Club night. Yep.
Yep.
It's all hand riddled by Scott. He just does it in small batches. It's phenomenal.
Yep.
It's quite a labor of love.
Yes, very much so.
Again, another one of his children.
Yes, that'll be all dosage. It'll be all riddled.
For those of you watching too, even though we are going to end the broadcast here shortly, we are going to still be on Twitter until 8 o'clock. So if you want to tweet us some questions, or you're having the wines after, or you're not having the wines with us, and you have some questions or some comments after the fact, please tweet us your questions. We'll try to answer everything. And the video will be available online, so you can come back and watch even after the event. And all this food keeps going past, and it just like smells amazing.
I see the third course coming through, and I'm waiting for you to snag one of those. This is the duck, right? The roasted.
Yes, this is the duck cassoulet. And just as an FYI, there is a 4th course for our guests tonight, and we're going to be doing a sweet Riesling, and Jonas is doing that with a pumpkin creme brulee. So we were sort of talking about the Riesling. Again, it's a dessert course, but the Riesling has such a nice sort of inherent acidity that it's perfect with.
Well, going back again on like the menu that we have tonight, this is Jonas's sort of fall menu, and we'll have to ask him when he comes back out here later and stuff and talks about what he's serving now.
Yeah, we should have Jonas come out and talk about the duck.
He changes his seasonal.
Yeah.
Like right now he has a lot of fall. He did the pumpkin. He does a lot of squash and everything else. It all depends on what's in the season for him and stuff onto it, but he's always constantly changing the menu over there. So if you do go to the restaurant, which is fantastic, it's in Flemington, right on Main Street, 55 Main. It is a very good restaurant, and he does very nice over there.
Yeah, and we wanted to try to have a menu that sort of showcased foods of this time of the year. Sometimes, the flavors that you think you're like, oh, I'm not exactly sure what to pair with some of these dishes, so we thought it was a really cool sort of opportunity leading into the holidays to try some wines with some unique dishes, just to sort of get people ready and going, oh, look, we have one.
Nice. We spiked it.
So for those, again, it's kind of hard. It's going to spill all over onto my plate or the counter if I tip it too far, but it's sort of the duck on top of the beans and the tomato. Like I was saying, this is sort of very traditional, sort of rustic Tuscan food. They do the beans with the tomatoes and the sausages. So again, you wouldn't, this is kind of one of those dishes you're like, what do I pair it with? It's got duck, it's got sausage, it's got beans, and the Malbec I think is like a perfect partner because it's just very light and mellow, and it'll just kind of follow you through the food. It'll stand up to the sausages, but it won't overpower the duck.
There he
And
is.
Jonas is here. Jonas. So why don't you talk to us a little bit about the duck course?
So here we are with the duck cassoulet. Again, a very traditional dish. I think it's great for this time of the year. You know, in a cold day out there, you come home, nice bottle of Malbec, a nice pot of cassoulet. Again, like the terrine, the cassoulet is referring to the vessel that it is cooked in. So cassoulets can be done with anything. A lot of times it's stuff that is cooked all day. So thinking this started a long time ago, and the hunters went out and they put their crock pot or their big pot on the fire, and they went out all day and stuff in here with a lot of fat that can stand up to the long cooking times. The beans, the stewed tomatoes. So in here we have homemade duck sausage and a homemade pork sausage. The pork is made in the style of like a sweet Italian sausage, some fennel seed in there, a little paprika, the garlic, and then the duck sausage. Again, the duck is very lean, so we had to add a little bit of fat to it. So there is a little bit of pork mixed in with the duck meat to make the duck sausage. This is how we serve it at the restaurant. If you were just to use all straight duck in a sausage, it would be very dry. As soon as it got cooked, it would be very dry. And, that's not what we're looking for. So we add a little bit. I'd say about 85% of it is duck meat. And then again, we're just doing this for a long time. We start out with the standard mirepoix, carrots, celery, onions. We cook that in a little bit of pork fat. We put the beans in there, kind of coat them with that duck fat, that pork fat, and just stew them down. A little bit of fresh tomato, a little bit of canned plum tomatoes. We make a duck broth that we add in there for some flavor. So those beans, as they're cooking, they're absorbing all that flavor from the bacon, from the sausage, from the duck broth. And this is what you got, your final product. Like I said, on a day like today, after a hard day's work, I mean, what more do you want when you come home? Well, the creme brulee will be next, but
Yes.
it's a good start. You got your wine, you got a nice bowl with some beans and some duck. So
Excellent.
Everybody enjoy.
Thank you so much,
You want
Jonas.
to talk a little bit about the restaurant, Jonas?
55 Main, we're located right on Main Street in Flemington. We serve lunch Monday through Saturday. From Saturdays is 12 to 3, Monday through Friday it's 11:30 to 3. Lunch is anything from a house ground Black Angus hamburger with homemade fries to Thai shrimp to a piece of filet mignon. So you could really get a good mix of everything. Somebody looking for something simple as a Reuben, an open-faced Reuben, I can't go wrong. We do very well with our lunch crowd. And then dinner Wednesday and Thursday 5 to 9, Friday and Saturday 5 to 10.
You need reservations.
On the weekend, definitely you're going to need a reservation. At nighttime, the finer service comes out, the white tablecloths, the wine glasses, the candles on the table, and that's where we're offering some more intricate stuff like this. That the lunchtime we have that crowd. They got an hour and a half. They got to get back to the courthouse or back to the office. So we try and gear the menu towards them. Nighttime, people have a little more time to sit back, enjoy that bottle of Old York Cellars wine, and relax. So we have a little more time to let that duck breast render down or let that ossobuco warm in the oven so it's warmed through. But kind of a little mix of everything. The locals know you come in during the week, you want a hamburger, we'd be happy to make it for you. So we've been open 8 years. This next weekend we'll be adding lunch on Saturdays, and we will start with a brunch on Sunday from 11 to about 3:34. We're going to play it out the first couple weeks and see how it goes. But everybody's been asking, so we'll take a shot at it and see how it goes. So help spread the word.
No, it's very good.
Thank
Very
you so
good
much,
over
Jonas.
You're welcome. Enjoy.
Thank you.
So we have another question from Wine Compass. He's asking, is the Malbec made from estate grapes?
It's a partial. It's a blend of estate grapes and ones that we do bring in. Unfortunately, with this winter that we just had, I'm going to be doing a lot of replanting.
Yeah.
A lot. They're calling for another bad winter, but the Malbec took a hit.
The vinifera's, the
all
cab,
the
the
vinifera's
Chardonnays,
took
yeah.
a hit. The French American hybrids pulled through the winter.
Yeah.
Those were great and stuff, but the ones like the Malbec, they took a hit. the Pinot took a hit on us, and the Cabernet took a kind of a hit last year. Didn't kill the plants, but it knocked them back down. So now
Yeah.
we got to do a lot of retraining, a lot of repositioning shoots.
Yep. It's definitely a challenge to grow grapes around here. But we want to thank all of you online for joining us again. We're going to you still send us your questions, your tweets. Again, the live broadcast will be available, so you can still tweet to us at Old Jerk Cellars or hashtag Virtual Vines. We will be checking Twitter tomorrow as well, so if you have any questions, we'll answer those tomorrow. We want to thank everybody for joining us on live stream, and thank you for joining us on Twitter as well. Thank you again to Jonas from 55 Main for this amazing food that's sitting next to me that we're going to be diving into when this broadcast is over. And we hope to see you for the next Virtual Vines in January.
Yes.
Have a great holiday. Enjoy. Have some great wine. And cheers. We'll see you again soon. Thank you.
Thank you.